it wasn't really the thing to have a foreign power's largest military base on the outskirts of your capital city. So it was agreed that the RAF should have a new base west of the Euphrates, at least 55 miles from Baghdad.
The new airfield and cantonment were to be built in the bend of the river Euphrates, close to Lake Habbaniya.
They chose it because, amongst other things, it had a very good defensive position, nestling in a crook of the Euphrates and being protected by the plateau. How wrong they were, of course, in April and May 1941.
The site was chosen for its ease of access to water from the river Euphrates and the large flat area to the southwest of the main camp for the 1,000-yard runways laid just outside the perimeter fence.
It was built from 1934 to 36 when it fully opened. The main civil contractors were Messrs Humphreys of Knightsbridge. The roads were laid out and eucalyptus trees were planted of a special variety from Australia, the oils and scent of which was particularly discouraging for mosquitoes.
It was the largest RAF station in the world.
It had a 9-mile perimeter fence round it, and that doesn't include the airfield, because at night the camp was closed off from the apron of the airfield by large rolling gates to keep the camp secure. It opened in 1936, and then the various units and departments like the hospital, the mounted RAF police, the maintenance units, the air headquarters, the supplies, etc., they all gradually moved in from Hinadi.
Well, actually, it was a wonderful station. It was about 8 miles round it. It was all fenced in, and, you know, it was a town in itself, really, all brick. That's because they've been done properly pre-war here. So it was a comfort, really.
Air Vice Marshal H.G. Smart took command of RAF Habbaniya in 1939. He was no stranger to Iraq, having been made acting officer commanding of No. 6 Squadron, based at RAF Mosul in 1922.
At the outbreak of World War II, it was decided that the RAF aircraft squadrons based at Habbaniya could be better employed elsewhere in Europe and the Middle East, where things were getting more desperate. Habbaniya was situated in the middle of Iraq and was therefore away from any action or any threat. 4 Flying Training School was at that time situated at Abu Swayr in Egypt, and it was decided that they needed the airfield at Abu Swayr for operational purposes, and that Habbaniya would be an ideal, nice, quiet desert base with clear skies to conduct flying training. So 4 Flying Training School moved overland from Egypt to Habbaniya and set up there.
In late 1940, the operational side of RAF Habbaniya consisted of 18 Rolls-Royce armoured cars, 6 companies of levies amounting to approximately 1,200 men, including officers, 3 Vickers Valentia bombers of the RAF Iraq Communications Flight, and 3 elderly Gladiators used as officers' runabouts. In addition, No. 4 Flying Training School's motley selection of aircraft included 3 Gladiator fighters, 30 Hawker Audaxes, 7 Fairey Gordon bombers, 27 Oxford trainers, 28 Hawker Hart bombers, 20 Hart dual-control trainers, and 1 Bristol Blenheim Mark I bomber.
All the planes out there were sort of second-hand planes from over here. When they got a new lot, move them out.
Rashid Ali al-Gilani was an anti-British nationalist who had been at the forefront of Iraqi politics since 1924.
In the early part of World War II, when it seemed that the British were very much on the losing side and the Germans were on the winning side, there were factions in Iraq who wanted very much to change allegiance. They were aided and abetted by Dr. Grobber, the German ambassador, and there was a lot of intrigue.
Rashid Ali tried to use the war to aid his nationalistic ambitions.
The Golden Square of army officers were agitating for control and to oust the British and embrace the Germans instead.
So there was a coup d'etat virtually.
The coup or uprising took place on the 1st of April 1941, and on the 3rd of April Rashid Ali proclaimed himself Prime Minister of the Iraq National Defence Government. Rashid Ali believed he was on the brink of an Iraqi alignment with the Axis powers that would sweep the British out of the entire Middle East altogether. On the 29th of April, a well-equipped and overwhelming Iraqi force took up positions on the plateau overlooking RAF Habbaniya.
The next thing, there was literally a knock at the door with a guy serving an ultimatum.
The message said Britain was in contravention of the 1930 Iraq Treaty, and the Iraqi army would open fire on any aircraft or armoured cars that came out of RAF Habbaniya. Smart had informed London that they were now surrounded by 9,000 well-armed troops, backed by aircraft and artillery. Not the peasants, with muskets and pitchforks, as Whitehall had assumed. In the light of these events, 70 Squadron with a force of 10 Wellington bombers were dispatched to RAF Shaiba. At this point, Winston Churchill lent his support and encouragement to Smart, and in a personal message stated, "If you have to strike, strike hard, use all necessary force." The full version of RAF Habbaniya, Jewel of the Desert, reveals the dramatic conclusion of the siege.
If they'd got right through, they'd had control of all the oil fields and everything to India.
The film also reveals how Hitler and then Mussolini sent in their air forces to aid the Iraqi rebels, again bringing the RAF dangerously close to losing its vital outposts in Iraq.
The Germans came over with a good contingent, a strong contingent.
At Habbaniya, life had calmed down after the frantic few days of the siege. However, the relative calm was shattered by an attacking force of 6 Messerschmitt Bf-110s and 3 Heinkel HE-111s.
I was going across to the NAFI. The siren went. I dived it head first into this trench. Bang! Vomit and blooming NAFI. Covered me all over. In this trench. Yeah, I was very lucky there.
The story then goes on to show the station's part in the liberation of Syria.
The fall of Damascus marks a conclusive phase of the Syrian campaign.
The Persian supply corridor to Russia.
At General Headquarters, Persia and Iraq Command are the men responsible for the planning and operation of the overland supply route to Russia.
Post-war, RAF Habbaniya's part in the Cold War is revealed. Secret listening posts and clandestine units tracking and eavesdropping on the Soviet Union's activities to the north. The final parts of the film show the unexpected Iraqi reaction to the Suez Crisis, where history seemed to be repeating itself.
In fact, a division of the Iraqi army, being sympathetic to the cause, or their cause and not ours, were on the plateau with their guns pointing inwards. So we knew we were in trouble if we did anything wrong.
And the final months of the RAF in Iraq. Following the violent and abrupt end of the Hashemite royal family, leading to the expulsion of the Royal Air Force from RAF Habbaniya after 23 years' occupation.